Welcome. It is no accident that you have found your way to the Release the Genie podcast. What would you do with 3 wishes? And what if you discovered that you are in fact that very genie that could grant them? Well, join us now as we discover who our next genie is as we listen in and learn the stories of triumph, inspiration, and passion with some very special guests. And now, without further delay, your host of the Release the Genie podcast, Mr. Paul Rogers.
That's so much better. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. I am your host, Paul Rogers, and welcome to another episode of Release the Genie. Wow, we have got a real surprise for you today. We have the wonderful Thurston Baker. Now, Thurston has an amazing story, which he's going to talk to you about today. He is the owner and CEO of Titania Ceramics. And just to give you an idea, I've brought along some of his work. Look at that, eh?
Look at that.
Very
nice. To purchase.
The others I sent to my mum and dad as presents. So very creative talent, lots of energy and love in my house now because of it. He is the king of comeback stories, and he celebrated his 20-year sobriety on the 21st of January. So well done, Thurston, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for having me.
No, it's fine. I mean, I've kind of set a bit of the backdrop. So tell us a little bit more about you.
I grew up in Sioux City till I was 10, Minneapolis till I was about 24. And then I kind of did full circle, went back to Sioux City, had to refigure things out, lived with my dad for a while. And then I've lived in Lincoln, Nebraska here for about 26 years. Finished college here at UNL here in Lincoln, and met my wife there. So it's kind of things rolled really nice after that. She only put up with my drinking for about 3 years, which was really good. And she said either stop or be gone. And I stopped from one day to the next and haven't drank in little over 20 years now.
Wow. That's amazing.
But that's a little bit of my locationary story anyway. I graduated with an English degree, and I kind of wanted to be a writer. I kind of wanted to get involved into some things, but it didn't pan out very quickly. So I just backtracked to my cooking. And I've cooked for 14 years of my life, driven for 10 years of my life, and I've cleaned for about 5 years of my life. But the whole time, up until the time I started my business 12 years ago, I always wanted to be in art. I always definitely wanted to be in pottery and ceramics and know the whole deal, know how to make my own glazes, how to master different techniques and things like that. And I definitely have been able to do that in the last 8 of the 12 years, and continuing to learn more. I love it. I absolutely love it. Most of it I love is not only creating and making it, but going on the road and selling it. There's nothing more gratifying and satisfying than when you're behind the table and folks come up and they ask questions, do you make this yourself? Some of the questions are kind of silly, but, I just love explaining it to them and telling them about myself and what it takes to do this and why it costs more than a bowl at Target, and things like that.
I mean, you're a real people's person, so I can see that you just love the energy of interacting with others.
I do. I love it. It feeds me energy, and even if they throw negativity at me, I just throw it down a dark hole and be like, well, I just throw positivity back at them, and either it sticks or it doesn't. I don't really care.
To be honest, it's a really good attitude because a lot of people are prisoners in their own mind of what other people think about them. And
absolutely.
What would you say to somebody who's in that situation?
First, I do my best to talk to them about identifying it in themselves. Look within, and you know, you feel that feeling that you feel like you're in a cage of fear at all? And usually if they say no right away, you're like, obviously you've been in the cage of fear for a long time and you're used to it, you know. So, you know, I just do the best to get into that realm and talk to them about what scares you, you know, what are you afraid of for the future? Are you afraid of dishealth? You know, what, you know, and I just try to have kind of a little bull psychology session with them, you know, a little bit, and just try to, you know, help them out, basically. Just help them out.
I mean, that's just amazing, to be honest. You know, I love it. I love the energy. I love that you are able to go in there and give them an outside perspective. And that's really what's needed in that type of thing. Not somebody to be angry with them, but somebody to help them.
Oh, absolutely. I can tell that a lot of them are blocked mentally, you know, and they've told themselves for years that either they're not worth having this or that in their lives, or you can't have your cake and eat it too. And I've been told that my whole life. And up to about 5 years ago, you know, I believed that too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my philosophy was, well, can I just see the cake? You know, and so eventually I realized, wow, they're bringing it right on the counter and they're giving me the knife to cut the cake off and put it on on a plate and eat it. So I roll with that now.
Awesome. Awesome. You've made me hungry at the same time. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can sort of now help us on sort of one of your aha moments. I'm sure you have many, but one of your aha moments where you released your genie.
Well, sobriety certainly helped out. As time went on in Alcoholics Anonymous, I realized that I can be somebody, you know. I'm not just this person that will never get where he wants to go. And I suppose when I started my art business, for sure, I was one of them, but I'd honestly say even beyond that, about 5 years ago, I was refurbishing iPods, and a fella purchased an iPod from me, and he went home and downloaded some material on it, and then he realized the battery wasn't working right, so he returned it to me, and I gave him another one in trade. And I never talked to him again, but some of the material he had on there, I noticed, oh, I want some of that in my collection. So I dumped it all onto my 7th generation classic. And I was at work one day and I listened to a lot of audiobooks and things like that at work. And just trying to improve my understanding of this world we live in and such. And section of a book that was on my iPod that I got from him started to play, and it was all about love, and it was about 25 minutes. And by the end of it, I was like, you know, this is fascinating. What is this? You know, and I look at the iPod and I'm like, Robert Conklin, what is that? And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was that guy's information that I had on my iPod. It was just intermixed in everything else that was on my iPod. And so I went back to the beginning of the recording, and it was A Positive Mind by Robert Conklin. And it was the beginning of my road to not only understanding divine science and God and the universe and just stoicism in general, and just that you can be free. You know, you can be free in life. You don't have to be underneath this government or anything like that. And so I read a lot of the books that it talked about in that book series, that tape series, and had just grown from there. And I listened to more audiobooks, and I just make it part of myself.
That's awesome. And it's amazing how the universe sometimes gives you a gentle nudge in the right direction. So,
right.
Well, this is going to be interesting because I know you're a very well-read guy. So could you zone in for one quote or mantra which really means something to you?
It's funny, we just talked about this earlier, but one of the biggest quotes I always tell everybody is, whatever anyone thinks of me is none of my business. And what that means to me is that it doesn't mean that I don't care. It actually means the exact opposite, is that I care a lot, but I don't care much about what others think of me. I'm secure in myself. I'm confident, and I know, and I have high self-esteem. I already know that, some days I'm awesome sauce. Some days I make bad choices, but really, I have something to teach others. And if they don't realize that, it's none of my business. I'll throw it out there and see if it sticks, and see if they are conducive to what I have to say, if there's some resonance there. And if there's not, just let them go on their way.
Take what you need and leave what you don't. So
exactly.
Love it. So I know that you've had some setbacks. So I wonder if you could help us with what's one setback or adversity you've had to overcome?
One thing I do want to say about setbacks right from the beginning is that any setback you have in your life, not only me or anyone else, if you look at the core of that setback, you did it to you. And people need to look at the whole span of that thing that happened and go all the way back to the beginning. And you will realize 95 to 100% of the time, you did it to you. It wasn't like a branch fell from the sky and landed on your head. You forced that branch to break off and fall on your head. So once you realize that, you can start to rebuild yourself, from the ground up. It doesn't matter what age you are. It can be 5, 55, 95. It doesn't make any difference. Time doesn't make any difference. People love to say that it does, but it does not. It does not. I've known people that started doing what they always wanted to do at 75 after they retired. Mostly I felt bad that they did what they hated for 45 years. It was like, man, there's a section on a movie called Up in the Air where basically in the film, there's this company that goes around and they let people go at other companies. And when they let the guy go and they slide the packet across, he gets all upset, of course, or he, like, what am I supposed to tell my kids? What am I supposed to tell my wife? I'm like, well, it doesn't matter what you tell your kids or wife, it's your life. So think back to the beginning. What did you always want to do? And if you can find that dream that you let extinguish some years ago by you, re-extinguish it, re-enlighten it and go do that.
That is just amazing, powerful advice. And a real way of becoming unblocked. You've mentioned earlier about being blocked, and freedom. That gives you the freedom.
Absolutely. That's the core of my being. That's what gets me up each and every friggin' day, is that I know I have the opportunity to be free once again for another day. No matter what anybody else tells me, I know I am, because I can close my eyes and meditate and go within and know I am free.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. Great advice. And I'm sure that resonates with lots of people who are watching.
So.
And as you said, it's not your business what other people think. So there you go.
Right.
Payload delivered, my friend. So I wonder now if you can just tell us what you're working on at the moment.
Ironically, for the last 2.5 months, I pivoted about 2.5 months ago because all my shows were kind of done for the season. I couldn't get any more because of COVID. And I had a few last year, which kept me going, and I know that, God's with me and Spirit's with me, or I wouldn't have had any of that. And so I've been doing that for the last 2.5 months, seeing if I could sell virtually and things like that. And just 2 weeks ago, and you don't know about this yet, Paul, but I decided to sell all my iPod kit stuff that I used to do when I had that business for 2.5 years. And I put that on eBay. It hasn't sold yet, but the 3 iPods that I had remaining to sell, I sold 2 of them. and there's one remaining to sell on Craigslist here in Lincoln. But one of the fellas that bought one of the iPods invited him in. You know, I showed him, he didn't really know a whole lot about it. He's like, he knows iPod touches and things like that between now. He's a little younger than I am. But while showing him how it worked, you know, he's like, well, you need to hurry up a little bit because I got to get to dashing. I got to get back to dashing. And I was like, I don't understand. You know, like, he's like, DoorDash. I'm like, when you go up to the doorbell and you ring the doorbell and you run away? I don't understand what you're saying. And he's like, no, it's this business. You can go and deliver food like Grubhub. I'm like, okay, don't say Grubhub on top of DoorDash. And you're just giving me two anomalies. And, and so he like shows me the app on his phone and I'm like, that's awesome. You don't have to do anything. And I've been a driver. I'm like a master at driving. I did it for 10 years, routing, you know, all over Lincoln, all over residential and commercial in Lincoln. So I'm like, this job is freaking made for me. I was so ecstatic. And look what brought it to me again, the iPod business. It did it twice, 2 big up levels from this little teeny piece of electronics that Steve Jobs invented for his daughter, you know, virtually was, you know, 1,000 songs in your pocket. And that was one of the original things that I loved about it. But anyway, he showed me how to do it. He's like, just sign up, you know, fill out your W-4 or your W-2 or whatever, go through a background check. You can do it this afternoon. And that's exactly what I did. But I went on my anniversary trip to Lawrence, Kansas with my wife, and then started it that Monday after, which was literally what? 2 weeks ago Monday. 2 weeks ago today. It's freaking awesome. You can earn anywhere between $600 to $1,000 a week in 40 hours worth of dashing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wow. Well, and I love the fact that you've now got a complete circle that it started with the iPod and actually ended there as well.
Right. I kind of sold that business off and getting rid of the last of the iPods, and it still gave me one more awesome.
Wow. You see, you know, anyone who's doubting whether the universe has a sense of humor, there it is.
And shoot, if it's right in front of you, some dollars is better than $0, right?
Well, I kind of think you've preempted the next bit, which is the magical bit, because that's a bit of magic all by itself.
It is. That's totally the way God and Spirit works. I completely believe so.
Well, that's real magic. So I'm hoping you're going to be able to channel that now for my 3 wishes, because you set yourself up for a really good high standard. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, my first wish is, what is the best advice you have ever received?
Do or do not do. There is no try.
Oh, now I know you're a big science man. So,
and actually that wasn't Yoda's. Even though everybody knows it is Yoda, that came from either Seneca or Marcus Aurelius. I can't remember which, but either one of those two said it in the Stoic era of that time.
That's amazing.
And that in itself, we tried when we were children. You know, your dad said, "Hey, go over, move that chair over here," and you pull on it, and you're too little. That's a try. You know, actually do it. Even if you mess it up, you can still fix it. That's what most people are afraid of. They're afraid that they won't be able to do it. So they've already canceled out their opportunity by themselves. See, right back to the root of the issue again. You know, they did it to them. It's like there was an instance where I really realized for sure that I could do almost anything that I wanted to do. And my Murray lawnmower broke and it wouldn't start. And I'm like, I don't get this. You know, I'm not very good at this type of thing. I'll just junk it and give it to somebody else. And my wife was like, well, why don't you go to the small engine shop and find out what's wrong with it and then just fix it yourself? She made it sound so easy. At that time, it was really irritating to me. And I'm like, okay, fine. Once again, wife freaking knows better than I do. All right. So I went down to, wrote down the model number, and I went down to the small engine shop and gave them the model number of the mower. And they're like, I know exactly what the problem with that is. They all have that same problem, that exact mower. It's the gasket right underneath the engine mount. He's like, here's the gasket. Here's the schematic. You take out these 4 bolts, take the carburetor up. You'll see that the seal is broken. You'll see that the gasket is cracked. Take that gasket out, put this gasket back in, put the mount back on, put the bolts back in. It'll start right up. And I'm like, is everything pretty much that easy? And the guy behind the counter, he said, yep, it pretty much is. If you have the schematics, you can fix anything. And from that guy's advice, I went home and did exactly what he said, and it did. I'd like push the plunger down for the gas, pull up 2 or 3 times, started right up again. And I used it again for another year, and my father-in-law needed a small mower, so I just gave it to him, and I got another one.
Awesome. A lesson which can be applied, as you say, across every area of your life.
It really can. Just don't have that fear of doing.
Love it. Great advice. And my goodness, I think people are writing that stuff down. So, and also don't throw the lawnmower away. You'll learn a lot. So going on to my second wish now, what advice would you give your younger self?
This is a more challenging question. Just having watched Back to the Future, I don't know, like 100 times, I don't know if any of the advice I would bring to my younger self, he would have taken. So we're all like that when we're young. But if my younger self would take advice, I would honestly, I don't think I would tell him anything, because I don't want my life to have changed in any way, shape, or form, even through the pain and agony of all the drinking years and all the fun of the drink, because all those sequential events lead up to where I met my wife. So if any of those get removed, or I stop drinking at 22 instead of 30, it's all going to fall out of whack. And I would never have moved from Minneapolis. I want the chain of events to stay exactly the way they are right now. And there was a phrase, actually, when I got done speaking Alcoholics Anonymous, I would always say, when I got done with my 15 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, hour, I would say, you know what? I've loved everything good and bad that's happened to me in my life. You all have a good night. I would say that at the end of each one.
Wow. That's wow. Sorry.
Because, I mean, it's just when something really bad comes up, it's just a perception that it's bad. You think that it's all aimed at you. It's like, no. Everybody else has had a similar example of how something came out of the blue and knocked them down on some idle Tuesday. That's just the way it goes. Now, the fact of the matter is, did you push up and get back on your feet and dust yourself off and move on? Because if you didn't, you're just going to stay stuck there on the ground for God knows how many years. And you just don't realize you are.
Amazing. And I can see the crossovers into so many parts of your life from the stories you've told. It's wonderful to hear you talk about that. So
I
brilliant.
just can't stand blaming. I can't stand when people blame things. Blame yourself because you did it to you.
And that's something you can fix rather than trying to fix other people. Yeah, that's the gasket.
It is. It's you take a step back. So what? There's going to be 2 steps forward soon.
Yep. Love it. Well, look, that moves me on to my final wish, which is, could you share one personal habit you have which attributes to your success?
I could say smoking cigarettes, but I don't know. That's one of the things that gets me up every day.
To be honest, you know,
people can say all they want to about smoking cigarettes and doing drugs and things like that. It's a motivator. You know, it may be a form of dishealth, but you know what? For me, you know, George Burns smoked till he was 101. There's all kinds of examples like that. And it's like, well, you know, you get mad at me because I'm smoking cigarettes and I'm outside. But then again, I can tell you just went down the street and got 2 double cheeseburgers and I don't know how many milkshakes to get that size. But we can't say anything about that. For some reason, it's acceptable to give smoking shit, but being overweight's okay.
It is, as you said before, a perception, which is no, I love it. I love it.
And I bet you didn't know I was going to go there, did you?
Well, to be honest, I know that you will go anywhere. So to be honest, nothing is ever off limits. So,
but in all honesty, the motivation that I have every day is just helping people. I just want to show people what I make, and hopefully they'll get the same amount of enthusiasm that I get in making it out of them purchasing it and being like, whoa, this is a one-of-a-kind piece that wasn't made, you know, by a group of people in another country, and they got paid nothing for doing it.
Love it. Love it. And so real. So where can we find you? After all that, I'm sure people are going to want to send you the love. So where can we find you?
I will soon have my shows listed on my website, but my website is titaniaceramics.com. TITANIA ceramics.com.
I also know, because I met you on LinkedIn, that you are pretty much there as well.
Correct.
There we go.
I mean, and this guy ordered right from my site, so it works.
I can tell you guys it works, and you were really, and this is just shows the, you know, how authentic you actually are, that you were really concerned that it got there without breaking, and that was one.
I was terrified, dude. I just recently, there's another gal on LinkedIn, and she won't be sad that I tell her name, is Laura Cobb. She's bought from me twice now, and the first thing I sent to her arrived fine. The second thing did not. One of the appetizer dishes broke, and I didn't break it. USPS broke it, and it was what we were discussing some time ago. They don't want to pay me the insurance. And so I was really upset by that. And they had done it before. Hopefully I can get it all figured out. We'll see. But yeah. And so I sent her another piece in replacement for that, and it arrived okay. So we're set on that. But yeah, I was just so afraid it was going so far all the way up to Quebec. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even fathom how many droppings that's going to be. It's never going to make it. And then, of course, it's the time of COVID. So stuff's being stored in a warehouse before they can move it forward. I don't know. Scan it through 4,000 x-rays to find out if there's something harmful in it. I don't know why it had to sit there that long. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Christmas came and went, you know, like most of January came and went. I'm like, what's going on? You know, people are going to believe that, you know, that I'm not doing a good job. But then once again, what others think about me is none of my business. I'm keeping my side of the street clean, and I'm always on the bright side of the road. So everything's good.
I love that bright side of the road. I love that. And yeah, I mean, to be honest, when it's quality, you don't mind waiting for it. So to be honest,
I appreciate that greatly, Paul. And I appreciate your purchase from the bottom of my heart.
Well, to be honest, your stuff speaks for itself. So I would suggest anyone who liked the bits I held up at the beginning, go and check out the website. But let me just round up here. Thurston, you are desperately authentic. You admire your freedom.
Sometimes I think frighteningly.
Well, Frightening is just the opposite of yeah. No, we'll say frighteningly authentic. I like that. And you tell it how it is. I love that. And you're a straight shooter. And
yeah, I don't sugarcoat shit.
Well, no, and I know that's one of the big things I've admire about you. So thank you very much for being on today's show. I wish you the best of luck with your trade shows. I know it's something you're really excited about.
Yes, I love it.
Perfect. Well, look, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you've been inspired by Thurston, check him out, send him the love, and stay tuned for his new shows. And we'll see you really soon on a next episode of Release the Genie. So goodbye for now.
Thanks so much, Paul.
It's a pleasure, my friend.
Well, that's a wrap. You have been listening to yet another episode of the Release the Genie podcast with host Paul Rogers. Be sure to follow Paul on the LinkedIn platform and learn more of Paul's resources at www.takeactionacademy.ca. And until next time, as always, be mindful and be sure to release your genie. Thanks for listening.